Hey, welcome back to part 3 of this integral Khopesh build. At the end of the last video, I hardened the sword, and now I'm pulling it out of the temper. It did two 2-hour cycles at 400 degrees in the even heat oven, and now that it's all tempered up, I can start grinding it. I'm starting off with a worn coarse grit belt, ceramic belt, and I'm just using that to kind of clean the blade up and get through all the crust, just so that I can do a hamon check and see what kind of activity we've got, see where the hamon is on the blade, and just make sure that everything is how I want it to be before I go and do my finish grinds and polish everything out and, take things to the point where it wouldn't be fixable if something was wrong. Well, unfortunately, now that I get to look at the hamon, I've realized that it kind of drops off the edge in the middle of the blade, which is kind of the sweet spot, and that's really not a good thing. So this means that I'll have to reheat treat the sword and try and get the whole edge hard this time, which is really disappointing because the hamon was looking really good up at the tip and at the base of the blade, and it was just the middle that was the problem. And I think I know why that was. I think that was because it was touching the bottom of the quench tank, but that sucks. I'll have to redo it. The edge is still thick enough that I'm not too worried about it. This time I'll be hardening the sword at Steve Morley's shop. I'll be using his sword forge, which I believe was a design that was first done by Sam Salvati. I could be wrong about that. But basically it's a big drum with insulation and 2 burners coming in, and it can be adjusted to a very nice even heat, and it's great for heat treating swords like this. That went pretty smoothly. The swords can go back into the oven for 2 tempering cycles like I described at the beginning. And you might be wondering why I didn't just harden the sword out of the oven, because it does fit. And while it does fit in the oven, it does not fit in my quench tank, so I would not really have been able to heat treat it in my shop, which was kind of a pain in this process, but whatever. And now I'm just going back, cleaning up the surface again, just grinding through that crust so I can see the hamon, and things do look a lot better this time. The hamon is lower on the blade than I was aiming for, and lower than I wanted. But I don't know, it's kind of like the way they are on a lot of katanas, on a lot of Japanese swords. Lower, but the whole edge is hard, and I think it's totally fine for this. I'll take it. Here I'm using my large carbide file guide from Riverside Machine to make sure that I can get the back of the bolster nice and flat and square, so that when I'm fitting the handle material up, it fits nicely. I like the carbide file guide because the belts won't really grind it that much. I do have to be a little careful with the ceramic belts because they will actually scratch it some, but very slowly, and if I can get it really close, I'll switch down to like an aluminum oxide 220 grit belt, or even just a file, just to get that last little bit to get it nice and flat and perfect. I'm still waiting on my integral grinding attachment, which basically is a small wheel with a platen that can grind this transition easily. But because I don't have it yet, and I want to get some work done on this sword, I'm going to start the handle. So I've got this piece of African blackwood. I'm just going to kind of find the middle for this. Carry that line across. Before we go to the drill press, we're going to just cut this off at an angle right there for the end of the handle. So there's nothing really too complicated about my handle fit up method. Once I've got my lines laid out for where the tang's going to go, I just drill it out oversized and then use a broach to clear out any excess material. I don't worry about making it so where it fits perfectly. I just get it a little oversized just because that's easier and it's all going to get filled up with epoxy anyways. So once I do get a couple holes drilled in there, I'm using this broach I made. It's just pretty simple and it works well. It's just kind of one little tooth on there that can pull material out of there. And once I've got a nice slot that fits the tang, we can move on to making some spacers. So for the spacers, I'm going to do 2 layers of black G10 with a layer of bronze between them. This looks nice and clean and classy and it catches the eye, but it's not too, busy. So once I've got these cut, I'm going to drill them out. Usually what I do is I put them on top of a block of wood and I use leather on the sides to clamp the pieces. That works way better than what I'm trying to do right now, because right now they're just moving all over the place and bouncing and moving and just making a huge mess. But I got it to work and then I filed it the rest of the way to fit. I'm sanding all these spacers so that the epoxy can grab onto it when I'm ready to glue this up. I won't be gluing it up right now. I'll do that after I've got the blade a little bit closer to being ground fully. So this is going to be all for today's episode. I was hoping to get more done, but I've been super busy with school and all that. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully in the next video I can get the sword ground and the handle on. But thank you for your support, and have a good one.